debate started with sparring over the economy, both candidates placing blame on the other for inflation and unemployment. And full transparency, in the interest of time, we have cut these clips have been edited together. But we tried really hard to make sure that nothing was taken out of context. It's just like, we can't just sit here and play the full clips if we want to get down to the substance. So I'd really tried to put them all in context. We'll see if I did a good job. See for yourself.
I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000. His plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. The tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. Look, we've had a terrible economy. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression, the worst public health epidemic in a century, the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Obviously, Trump won the coin toss. He opted to speak last, which meant that he was on the defensive initially. Is that a mistake, you think, Nirati?
I think for him, I think it was good for him, because there are so many things that Kamala had to say about him and the economy and after COVID, and I think he wanted to see how much she attacked him and then attack her in the Biden administration just as much. I think that was a good decision.
I think it was a mistake. I don't think. I mean, I know that record numbers probably tuned into the debate, but I doubt. I question how many actually stuck it out to the end. I think it's much better to start first and put your opponent in the defensive than to have the final word. Oftentimes, the final statements really are just like a vibe check. Interesting enough, though, she started. The question was the economy better than it was 4 years ago? She didn't answer that question, did she?
Yeah, no, she didn't.
Complete dodge. However, it's because we were talking about she's trying to separate herself from Biden. So she's walking a really fine line here, you know? I mean, I think she could have answered, and I think she could have said yes unequivocally. I think there's enough statistics to play around to where that's not a total lie, because you look at unemployment, you look at the stock market, you look at wages, all up since 4 years ago. That being said, we were in a pandemic, but you know, politicians don't care about that as long as there are enough facts to play with. So I think she could have. However, then she would be tying herself more and more to Biden. I think she's trying to market herself as the change candidate. So, you know, she's riding a really fine line. I think she did it moderately well. Nirati, what stood out to you the most during this exchange?
I think, as you were talking about, how she could have talked about how things were after COVID, and then he would have said, yeah, that's because it bounced back. I do think, he did end up saying that. He said the jobs were bounce back jobs. So I think that stood out to me. She never really, I think he, gave a counter argument to an argument that she never made, but she didn't need to because he did that anyways.
Wait, what do you mean? He gave an argument to, say that again?
He gave a counter argument, or he kind of rebutted what she never like said. Like she didn't explicitly say like all those stats you listed, like unemployment, wages, all of that. She never explicitly said that, but he still said, oh, like all these jobs that you created were like bounce back jobs. So also, I do think she was visibly uncomfortable during this. I think towards the end of the debate, she got a lot more comfortable. And I think she missed out on an opportunity to express her confidence. The whole debate, he also mentioned Biden a lot. He said, under Biden, this happened, you had 3.5 years. He would always talk about how she had enough time to do things. And then she's trying to separate herself from that image. And I think she didn't figure out how to do that until the end of the debate. And I think that really stood out to me here because she didn't mention so many things that she could have mentioned. And as I completely agree, like as you were saying, no one in that time would have said, like she could have talked about how the economy has improved after COVID and all that. She could have talked about that, but she didn't. And I think that was definitely her way of trying to separate from Biden, which I don't think she did a really good job of here.
Yeah, they're blaming each other for things that are clearly the results of the pandemic. I know it can work to some of their base, but I think and it's not something that Trump is solely like he'll say, "Oh, inflation was the lowest it's ever been under my, at the end of my, well, that's because COVID, like demand. I mean, this is all about supply and demand, and labor shortages and whatnot. And then he credits himself for the low inflation caused by COVID. But then he blames Biden Harris on the high inflation caused by COVID. And he over exaggerates it. He says 21% inflation. That's a gross over exaggeration. That's like hyperinflation territory. I'm pretty sure we kept it under 10, but like, she does it too, because she's like I said, like unemployment was the worst. Yeah. Biden said in the last debate, he's like, Trump handed us a country the economy that was flat on its back. Well, yeah, because we went through a once in a lifetime pandemic. So it's like, so they're both guilty of, trying to use to credit and discredit in regard to that. I'll tell you one thing though, that I think Kamala messed up on. She tried to oversimplify the tariffs, calling them a sales tax. Now, you can argue you want about the validity of tariffs, and there's an argument to be made that they hurt the American consumer over anyone else. But to oversimplify it and say, hey, he's going to give you dish out a 20% sales tax. So once you say that, you kind of lose credibility. Because then he says it's not a sales tax, it's a tariff. And then the people at home that you're trying to convince to vote for you going, oh, see, she's lying right out of the gate. She's calling a tariff a sales tax. Like, I understand what she's getting at, but I think oversimplifying it is a mistake. So, yeah.
I was watching it at home, and like we caught that. Like we were like, she talks about how he makes stuff up. He was fact checked so many times, but also like, if you like make simple mistakes or oversimplifications like this, it's like you can't really believe anything else. Like you can argue that.
Yeah, it undermines other things. So you could be right on other things, but then like the people watching remember that you called the tariff a sales tax when and so it's like. I mean, like I guess it
creates the image that you don't care enough to like properly investigate or like plan. I don't like.
I think she's dumbing it down. I think what it is she's trying to dumb it down to the audience. She's like, I don't know if the audience understands fully what a tariff is, so I'm going to call it a sales tax because like there are economists that equate those two, and end up saying, hey, these tariffs are passed on to the consumer, i.e. kind of a tax, on the sales of goods. But like in trying to dumb it down, I think she completely undermines not only like that, but potentially everything that she said in that segment. So, mistake, I don't know, but Trump over exaggerated things too. 21% inflation, not true.